Commodore, my 64, my Commodore 64.
Hi there, and welcome to a Let's Type episode from the Commodore 64 Appreciation Society. This is a series where I reach back into the past and type out a program from an old computer magazine, and then when I finish typing it in, I play it. Let's take a trip back to August 1985. There's no denying it. This was the month of Michael J. Fox. When he wasn't busy blowing up amplifiers in Back to the Future, he was dunking basketballs while dressed as a wolf. And when he wasn't doing that, he was living out his dream as an aspiring yuppie on our TV screens.
Would you do something you knew was wrong?
That kid was everywhere. Over in the tech world, things couldn't have been more exciting. New computers like the Commodore 128 and the Atari ST were promising more power than ever before. And over at the arcade, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was wowing players with actual digitized speech from the movie. Not that most of us could hear it anyway. We were too busy blasting music from our new Sony Discmans. Or at least we would have been if they weren't skipping all the damn time. And when we weren't spending our money at the theater, the arcade, or on fancy new CDs, we were at home playing games and typing in programs on our Commodore 64s. And the selection was incredible. Every month, magazines like Compute Run and Ahoy delivered a whole raft of games and utilities to type in, and hopefully get working. One of those was Gators N Snakes, a game where you guide a group of hunters to safety across a swamp infested by, well, gators and snakes. The premise sounds like full-on reptile chaos, and honestly, I'm here for it. So let's get typing and see what we've got. Gators N Snakes was written by James Sanders and is a Commodore 64 exclusive. That would have been almost unheard of in magazines like Compute, where listings were usually provided for multiple systems. But it was actually pretty common in Ahoy, which focused exclusively on Commodore. And actually, this is the second game I've typed in from Ahoy. The first was Flash Flood, a fantastic Kaboom clone written almost entirely in machine language. So yeah, I've got high hopes for this one. I just love the sound of that keyboard. As far as type-ins go, this is a pretty significant one. Gators N Snakes takes up almost 3 full pages with just under 200 lines to type in. A solid mix of basic machine language and sprite definitions. But they do call it an arcade game, so I'm hoping for some decent graphics and fast action. Fortunately, the listing also includes checksums from Bug Repellent, Ahoy's proofreading program. This is actually the second version of Bug Repellent. The original debuted in April of 1984 and lasted all of 2 issues before being replaced by this one, which stuck around until 1987. This version works a little differently from other proofreaders we've used. Instead of checking each line as you go, it gives you all the checksums at the very end. To be honest, I'd much rather have real-time checking, but hey, proofreading is proofreading and it's way better than the alternative. I was today years old when I learned that Orson Card, you know, the guy who wrote Ender's Game, was a pretty major presence in the Commodore scene back then. The August 85 issue of Ahoy features an article on creating sound effects, and it's one of many pieces Card wrote for the magazine. He was also a regular contributor to Compute, which somehow makes this even more surprising. It's a great article too. He starts by explaining how the sound chips work, then digs into how to actually use them, shaping effects by combining voices, changing pitch, and adding vibrato. It's deeply technical, but very readable. The issue even includes typable code for about a dozen standalone sound effects, plus a program called Soundorama, which showcases even more. For aspiring programmers, this kind of material was pure gold. We didn't have the internet, so learning new tricks usually meant articles like this. And yeah, Orson Card, who knew? In addition to writing some of my favorite sci-fi, he also wrote games, columns, and reviews for multiple computer magazines. I honestly can't believe I hadn't noticed this sooner. This has been a really interesting program to type in. The basic portion starts by setting up the game, drawing the screen, and loading the data for sprites in machine language. Unlike many games though, BASIC doesn't simply hand off gameplay to ML. It stays in control, checking for player input and moving the character while constantly calling a machine language routine. That routine handles sprite movement and collision detection, and if the player hits something, it just sets a flag in memory for BASIC to deal with. Otherwise, the loop keeps running. So, BASIC manages the overall game flow, movement, score, and state, while machine language handles the sprites. It's a really clever way to structure a game loop. But, as cool as this is, it's not actually the code I want to highlight this episode. The title screen in Gators N Snakes includes a neat little effect which you can see here. It's a fun little scrolling thing, and this is exactly the kind of code I used to borrow for my own games. What makes it especially fun is that, well, it isn't actually scrolling at all. Let's take a look at how it works. This line sets up the trick. It stores the full title string exactly as it will appear on screen, with a bit of extra spacing to get the centering right. The real magic happens in the next few lines. Line 45 loops from 1 to 34, which just happens to be the length of the string. Each time through the loop, write $sign grabs a slightly larger slice from the end of the title and prints it. So first you get a single character, then 2, then 3, and so on. The up at the end moves the cursor back up a line, so each new print overwrites the previous one. That's the illusion. Nothing is moving, the line is just being redrawn a little longer each time. Line 46 then adds a short delay to control the speed, along with a few pokes to play a sound, and line 47 keeps the loop going until it's been drawn. Simple, efficient, and it looks great. Cool, right? Alright, that was a lot of code, but I got through it pretty quickly. It only took me about an hour in total. And we can see in the listing that the code takes up 23 blocks, or just under 6K. I'm not sure what the average size of my type pins have been, but this seems like it's pretty close. Now it's time for a debugging pass using bug repellent. I loaded bug repellent into memory, and now I just need to reload the code for Gators N Snakes. Entering SYS 49152 then runs it, and we'll see what happens. Output to screen. Okay, that's really fast. Oh, in the instructions it says that you can hold shift to pause the list. Well, that's a good thing. It's just a matter of listing a few lines and comparing the checksums with what's in Ahoy. Oh, okay, here's one. Bug repellent is giving me a checksum of GH for line 360, while Ahoy's is FM. Oh, and I see the problem. I accidentally inserted the symbol to change the color to red when it should have been white. Okay, fixed. And now on to the next one, rinse and repeat. At the end of the process, I probably had 15 or 20 typos. Definitely not my most accurate typing session, but we're done. Let's just save it and we'll see what the game looks like. Okay. Here's that cool little scrolling but not actually scrolling intro. And now we just wait for the data to get loaded. Oh, well, I wasn't expecting that. I thought I saw a Frogger set up there for a couple seconds, but I'm going to search for a correction. Wow, so there was a correction published, but it didn't come out until December, or a full 4 months after the game was published. This is how we did things before the internet, kids. At any rate, we should be able to run it now. Oh yeah, That data statement broke the internal checksum. I'm just going to have to comment that line out. And we're alive. And yeah, definitely a Frogger clone, which is sweet. I love Frogger. So we have our hunters on the left and their homes are on the right. And in between is a patch of ridiculously unsafe Louisiana swampland. Why did these hunters even leave their houses? I feel like there's plenty of good hunting right from their front porch. Oh, I'm just getting creamed here. These guys move fast. I love how the speed shift though, and the Gators N Snakes sometimes stop entirely. Adds a whole different layer of strategy from original Frogger. So game number 1 was not exactly successful, but that's okay. I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement here. I know the player character is supposed to look like a hunter, but all I'm seeing is a frog. Come on, little hunter froggy. Cool, I got one of them home. That awards you an extra life. I like that mechanic. Yeah, I really like how some of them just stop. I guess we call this a Louisiana traffic jam. That's 2. That's 3. And there we go. 4 of them made it home and now we're on level 2. Holy crap, look at the size of that snake. The instructions said that the critters get a little faster and bigger after each level, and they aren't kidding. That thing is terrifying. Yeah, it's a Frogger clone, but it's introduced enough new features, especially the changing speeds, to be really interesting. And the controls are super responsive, which is critical for a game like this. James Sanders did a terrific job coding it. Man, is this game ever challenging. I think the best strategy is to find a safe lane and camp there until you get a clear shot. But as the animals keep getting bigger, I'm not sure that'll work on later levels. And speaking of levels, the instructions say that you can win the game by getting to level 10. I'm not sure that I'm going to make it that far, but this is a really fun game, and I feel pretty good for even making it to level 3. And what's nice is that it's beckoning me to play again. That is the sign of a good game. I'm now 2 for 2 with Ahoy games. Flash Flood is fantastic, and this is a really high quality game as well. It was fun to type in, and overall, I just continue to be so impressed with the games that were in these magazines. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with some Louisiana swampland. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And if you have any memories of Gators N Snakes, or if you have any changes you'd make to it, let me know about them in the comments. Hope to see you again.